Just this week, the United States has opened a missile base right on the border with Belarus, which is de facto Russian territory. This is a major escalation, and even though we have the Trump administration coming in and talking about making peace with Russia, actually bringing peace to Europe once again, we have a lot of people out there, including Poland, who do not want to see that happen. But friends, we cannot afford a war. If you think that we can't afford bread, if we can't afford milk and eggs right now, if you're struggling with grocery bills, I promise you, we as a country cannot afford a full-blown world war. Things will get dramatically worse if we enter into a war. Let's talk about it. There's some good news out there. We got some countries starting to talk peace. We got Donald Trump out there with his peace plan. We got Zelensky actually starting to talk about peace. We got a lot to talk about, but we also need to talk about this new missile base in Poland and the one that's about to open up in Romania. It's not looking good. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we discuss things on this channel that the mainstream media just doesn't want to cover. They're all about war. They're just chomping at the bit to get their reporters over into the battle space so that they can get some really cool pictures of the United States blowing up all sorts of stuff. The mainstream media loves nothing more than a war. It's a great news story for them. They make lots and lots of money off of it. And, of course, they get to coordinate directly with the deep national security state who feeds them all sorts of propaganda so that they can then get their backs scratched by the deep state. So mainstream media loves a war. Now, people on this channel, I think generally do not want to see a war. We don't want to see a war with Iran. We don't want to go to war with Russia. A lot of the people on this channel have been touched by war, whether directly or indirectly. And I think that we are the sane ones. And the people that are chomping at the bit and rattling sabers because they want to go to war are the insane ones. That's just the truth. All right, so what happened this week? The United States opened a missile base in Poland, right on the border with Belarus. It is an Aegis Ashore missile base. Now, it's supposedly for missile defense. Air defense, missile defense. It's basically like an Aegis cruiser on land. And that was the idea. George W. Bush came up with this idea, so you know it's a brilliant idea. He's like, we have these destroyers who can shoot down missiles. We have destroyers that can shoot down aircraft. Why can't we put that on land? Yeah, it's sort of like taking an Abrams tank, taking the turret out and sticking it into a bunker. I mean, kind of defeats the whole point because, the fact that it could move around and go to different places is kind of the whole point of the warship theory, and same thing with the tank, right? Anyway, George W. Bush, through his strategery, decided that this would be a good idea, started developing the program, and during the Obama administration, they ordered the construction of this military base in Poland, right up against the Russian border. Now, Russia was very not happy about this because not only can it fire anti-aircraft missiles deep into Belarus, not only can it intercept missiles, but also it can fire Tomahawk missiles, which can be equipped with nuclear weapons. And that would put these nuclear Tomahawks over Belarus within minutes, under 5 minutes. Same thing reaching into Russia under 10 minutes. That is very not long of a time to respond to this type of attack. Russia feels that it's being surrounded, and when you look on the map, there are 39 NATO and Polish bases right up against the Belarus border. You got Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia with their NATO bases right on the Russian border. I don't see any Russian bases in Canada or Mexico or Cuba right up against the United States, and yet the United States feels the need to deploy troops right up against the Russian border. It's not hard to see who the aggressor really is from an objective standpoint. The fact that we're sending our troops 10,000 miles away in order to stand guard on somebody else's border while our border is wide open is hypocritical, to say the least. The fact that, anyway. So that's the bad news out there, but we got some good news too. Okay, so the German Chancellor, Scholz, who is now basically a lame duck chancellor, he's got snap elections coming at him early 2025, which will require basically a new German government. And with the way AfD is gaining in popularity in Germany for its anti-immigrant and actual enforcing the law, I mean, they're radical. They're radical. They want to enforce the law in Germany. They want to balance the budget in Germany. They want to support farmers and not destroy farmers. These are radicals in Europe. I mean, these people are crazy. Just like in the Netherlands, when the farmers rose up and said, hey, how about we not shut down all the farms? Crazy radicals. I mean, these people are nuts. So, but the German Chancellor, lame duck, finally picked up the phone and called Moscow. First time in 2 years. Now, to put this in perspective, Germany almost certainly has troops on the ground in Ukraine. We're not supposed to know that, but it's the truth. They have troops in Ukrainian uniforms. They got troops out of uniform doing stuff, okay? All the NATO countries, all the big NATO countries have special operations troops inside Ukraine. Anyone who tells me differently is just really just a joke. I mean, it's just a joke. I mean, just like the United States has troops in Syria, though, we're like, oh, we don't have troops in Syria. Even though we have thousands and thousands of troops in Syria guarding oil fields. I mean, people, we're guarding, no, we're just guarding oil fields. So if you want to be cynical about things, there is ample evidence around the world that the United States is really just going to war over oil and sending our troops into harm's way in order to protect oil fields for oil and gas companies. Yeah. Anyway, that's happening. So the German Chancellor finally picks up the phone, calls Putin to talk about peace. Now, when you're at war, and Germany is, troops in harm's way, almost assuredly, they're sending long-range missiles so that Ukraine can fire deep into Russia. They are providing signal intelligence. They are providing other assistance, lots of tanks, lots of munitions. They're dumping lots and lots of money into fighting Russia. If you are fighting another country, a country who has openly stated that they're open to peace negotiations, and you don't talk to them in 2 years, one would possibly come to the conclusion that you want the war, that you like the war, that the war is suiting your benefits, suiting your interests. And that's exactly what's been happening over in Europe. France, UK, Germany, and Poland, they like the war in Ukraine. They don't care a lick about Ukrainian lives. They just care the fact that that Russia is being weakened. And they just love it. And that sounds harsh, and yet it's the truth. Poland right now wants to continue the war, and in the face of potential Trump peace talks, Poland is trying to rally its most loyal members of warmongering France and the UK, trying to get them to form a coalition with Poland to make sure that they stand up in the face of any peace talks. Any peace talks. Not like if Donald Trump can't get good terms, we'll oppose it, but we're just going to oppose it, period, because we want the Ukrainian war to continue. That's the kind of sick people we're up against. Now, when you look at these countries, France and the UK both have problems back in the home front. France just lost some elections, and President Macron sort of lost control of his parliament. Now, he's still in it because the president is not appointed by parliament. It's a separate institution, sort of like how the branches of government in the United States work. They try to pattern things after the United States, but they made a terrible copy of it. They didn't quite get what we're trying to do in here in America, and so when they copied it, they just didn't do a great job. But they have a president. So, whereas in the UK, they basically just did the straight parliamentary system because they're supposed to have a king, but their king basically just... Anyway, it's about to say things about them, but maybe I'd like to go to the UK at some point here in the near future, and I don't want to go to jail. Anyway, so the UK has a massive farmer rebellion on their hands that is going to be ramping up this week. By the end of this week, the farmers are supposedly going to start blocking ports and blocking roads, and if the government opposes them, they're just going to start blocking random roads. They're pretty upset. There's a lot of people in the UK that are very upset. They've been suppressing free speech. We saw these riots, which were basically protests because they weren't violent. But we're going to call them riots anyway because that's what the UK government wants us to do. Anyway, I'm not capitulating to the UK. I'm saying that sarcastically, okay? So there were protests, and there were a lot of protests over the children getting stabbed. And the fact that the UK government was protecting the migrants that did these crimes, but not protecting the children who were being attacked in these crimes. That kind of got people a little heated over in the UK. And what did they do to absolve this and to settle things down? They didn't. They just crushed all dissent. There's I just saw a report, a 15-year-old boy is being arrested for his participation in the riots. What did he do? He participated. That's what he did. He was there. They've been using surveillance footage to go after one by one everyone who basically participated in these protests, even if they were standing there with a sign chanting and blocking traffic. Yeah, and so his sister was murdered and abused before she. She was assaulted, attacked, and then after the police refused to investigate and refused to do anything, they basically made her seem like the not the victim but the aggressor because of her after being hospitalized and such. She ended herself, and this boy, whose sister that was. He went to a protest. Can you imagine why he might go to a protest and why he might be a little bit upset? That the police did not help her. They, in fact, turned on her and treated her like a criminal. This is like what they do in Islamic countries, where if you're assaulted, they'll execute you. It's absolutely insane, and yet that's what the UK is doing. And you know, with the large amount of migration that's happening there, there's a reason why we call it Londonstan, because basically London has been taken over by so many migrants, most of them from Muslim countries. So we got the UK has got some serious trouble at home. People do not like what the UK government is doing. They're all for the war in Ukraine with British troops on the ground, special operations and such, not officially. And then we have France, who has serious troubles at home. They want war. And Poland wants war. I mean, I'm not a fan of Russia. I've been terrified to go to Russia because back since like 2009, 2010, after I heard the stories of people being, Americans being imprisoned there extrajudiciously, people being attacked and, arrested by the Russian government for whatever they feel like conjuring up crimes of, I've always been kind of scared of going to Russia. And because I know it's corrupt. Everybody knows it's corrupt. I mean, it's just corrupt. I get it. And it's scary corrupt. Because it's not only corrupt, but it has no fear of other countries and the pressure that the United States and others could bring to bear on it. But with all that in mind, flip things around, and it's hard not to see it from Russia's perspective, where they're being surrounded by military bases and missile bases, and we are squeezing them into a corner. It's hard not to see how they might feel threatened by that. I mean, can you imagine your house being surrounded by policemen with guns drawn? Oh, well, we don't really have a reason to be here, but we're just going to camp outside your house, pointing guns at your house. For reasons. You'd feel a little bit threatened by that, wouldn't you? Even if they're good cops. Just the fact that you have police or FBI or whatever surrounding your house with weapons and tanks and everything like that, you'd feel threatened by that. And we would too. We freaked out when Russia put missiles in Cuba, right? Nobody ever talks about how the reason why they put missiles in Cuba was because we put missiles in Turkey. Basically the same distance away. And JFK actually negotiated for the removal of our missiles in Turkey in return for the removal of the missiles in Cuba. So basically, we instigated that, and then Khrushchev, was it Khrushchev at that point? The leader of Russia thought that JFK would be a pushover because he was a limp-wristed Democrat. And that's what provoked this. They had an in-person meeting, and his read of JFK was that he wouldn't be able to stand up to the pressure. And so that's what prompted the confrontation. With the last 4 years of the resident-in-chief, we've seen the very same kind of weakness. And this has provoked, the door for opportunity for other countries like Russia to do a lot of stuff. And that's why we have the invasion of Ukraine. It's because the weakness of the U.S. president and the weakness of the Europeans. Hopefully things change. Hopefully things change. We need peace because we can't afford war. And we may need to project strength to do that, but we need to not be provocative in our application of that, except for specific purposes, for negotiation. We can't just be provoking other countries just for the sake of provoking them, just because we think it's fun, just because we think it'd be a great place for a missile base. Why wouldn't we want to have a missile base 7,000 miles away from the United States? Makes sense to the United States. Why can't we build a missile base or a large infantry base right on our border? That would be a change of things, wouldn't it? What would happen if we've redeployed most of our active duty troops inside the United States from being in bases spread out across the United States into just turn the entire southern border into one long military base and just set up all of our troops right down there? That would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? All right, friends. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Have a great Saturday. Steve Poplar, the Poplar Report out.